You think Amazon makes money selling you things. The cardboard box on the porch. The 2-day shipping. The endless aisle of everything on earth, delivered cheap and fast. It feels like the biggest store ever built, and in a sense it is. Amazon sold about $638 billion of goods and services last year. But here's the strange part. If Amazon only sold things, it would barely make a profit at all. The real engine isn't the box on your porch. It's a business most shoppers have never knowingly touched, and on its own it throws off more profit than the entire store combined. Here's how it looks from the outside. Amazon. You search, you click, you buy, a box shows up. Multiply that by hundreds of millions of people, and you get one of the largest sales numbers in the history of commerce, about $638 billion in total net sales last year. That's up from around $575 billion the year before. So the obvious story writes itself. Sell a colossal amount of merchandise, take a slice of each sale, and the slices add up to a fortune. And the machine behind it is real. Warehouses the size of small towns, robots gliding across the floor, a delivery network that now rivals the big shipping carriers. Amazon spends staggering sums moving goods to your door fast, and it keeps prices low to keep you coming back. That's the picture in everyone's head. The everything store winning on sheer, relentless volume. And the volume keeps growing. More Prime members, more warehouses, more countries, more packages every single year. But look at what that volume actually earns, and the story starts to crack. Selling physical goods is a brutal, thin margin business. You have to buy the inventory, store it, pack it, ship it, handle the returns, and pay the people who do all of it. Amazon's North America retail business, its biggest single chunk of revenue, earned an operating margin of only about 6% last year. 6 cents of profit on every dollar of sales, before you even count the international side. And the international retail business earns even less. For years, Amazon's overseas stores barely broke even, or lost money outright, so here's the puzzle. If selling things were the whole company, Amazon would be a low-margin giant scraping by on pennies per order, moving more merchandise than almost anyone on earth, and keeping almost none of it. Either the most valuable store ever built is also one of the least profitable per dollar, or selling things was never where the real money lived. So where does the money really come from? From a business with a name most shoppers have never typed into a search bar: Amazon Web Services, AWS. It rents out computing power. When a company needs servers, storage, or databases but doesn't want to build its own data centers, it rents them from Amazon by the hour, by the gigabyte, by the request. Streaming services, banks, startups, airlines, government agencies, even other retailers, a huge slice of the internet quietly runs on AWS. You've almost certainly used it today without ever knowing it. When an app loads, when a show streams, when a website answers, there's a real chance an Amazon machine somewhere just did the work. Now look at the numbers side by side. Last year, AWS brought in about $108 billion in revenue, roughly 17% of Amazon's total, a minority. A sliver next to that $600 billion store. But AWS's operating income that year was about $39.8 billion. And Amazon's total operating income, the profit from running everything, the store, the cloud, the ads, all of it, was about $68.6 billion. Sit with that for a second. AWS, at 17% of revenue, produced about 58% of Amazon's entire operating profit. The cloud earns well over half the profit from less than a fifth of the sales. Put it the other way around, and it's even sharper. Add up the operating income of Amazon's two retail businesses, North America at about $25 billion, international at about $3.8 billion, and you get roughly $29 billion. That's the entire global store, every warehouse, every truck, every package, every country. AWS by itself made more than that. The thing you think of as Amazon earned less profit than the thing you've never heard of. The box on your porch is the visible body of the company. The cloud is its beating heart. And here's the part that really exposes the shape of the company. Last year, Amazon's total operating income roughly doubled, up about 86%, and net income landed around $59 billion. The North America segment even swung from about $15 billion in operating income the prior year to about $25 billion last year, but at its best that store still trails the cloud. And yet across the entire business, Amazon's overall operating margin last year was only about 11%. The company that runs a 37% margin cloud business posts a barely double-digit margin overall because the enormous, Low-margin store drags the blended number back down to earth. The averaging hides where the profit actually lives. And last year was actually a good year for the stores. Rewind to 2022 and the picture is almost comical. That year, Amazon's international retail business lost about $7.7 billion, and the North America and international stores together lost roughly $10.5 billion. The global everything store, the most famous retailer alive, lost money. The only reason Amazon turned a profit at all that year was AWS, which earned about $23 billion and quietly carried the entire company on its back. For a stretch there, the cloud wasn't just the biggest source of Amazon's profit. It was effectively the only source. The store wasn't paying the bills, the data centers were. Now, why does this work, and how on earth did a company that started by mailing books end up running a chunk of the internet? It starts with the math of margins. Selling a television means buying that television, warehousing it, and shipping a heavy object across the country, then eating the cost if it comes back. Every dollar of retail revenue drags a mountain of physical cost behind it. Renting out a server is almost the opposite. Amazon builds the data center once, fills it with machines once, and then sells that same computing capacity over and over to thousands of customers, with very little added cost each time another customer signs on. Last year, AWS ran an operating margin around 37%, roughly 6 times the margin of the North America store. One business sells atoms. The other sells access. Atoms are heavy and they don't scale. Access is weightless and it scales almost without limit, and that gap is the whole architecture of the company. Picture $2 of revenue. The retail dollar walks right back out the door to pay for the television, the warehouse, the truck, the returns desk, and about 6 cents survives to the operating line. The cloud dollar comes in, the data center is already paid for, and something closer to 37 cents survives. Mix a giant pile of 6-cent dollars with a smaller pile of 37-cent dollars, and the smaller pile quietly wins. And here's the elegant part, the twist inside the twist. A doubless exists because of the retail business, not in spite of it. To run a store that can't go down on the single busiest shopping day of the year, Amazon had to become extraordinarily good at building and running computers at enormous scale. It had to handle wild spikes in traffic, store oceans of data, and keep everything online when a billion people showed up at once. Around 2006, Amazon realized that other companies needed exactly that capability and couldn't build it themselves, so it started renting its own infrastructure out. The retail business was the gym where Amazon trained. The cloud is what it does with the muscle. The low-margin store built the engineering, the data centers, and the scale, and that scale spun off a high-margin business that now earns more in profit than the store that birthed it. There's one more reason the cloud is such a good business, and it's hiding in the word rent. Once a company builds its software on AWS, its databases, its storage, the plumbing that makes its product work, moving to a different provider becomes enormously expensive and risky, so they mostly don't move. They keep paying, month after month, year after year. That makes AWS revenue largely recurring and remarkably sticky. Not a one-time sale that has to be won again tomorrow, but a meter that keeps running. A retailer has to win you back every single time you decide whether to click buy. AWS, by contrast, gets paid simply because its customers' businesses are still switched on. Recurring, high margin, hard to leave. That's about the best shape a business can take. Look closer and the same pattern repeats one layer up, inside the store itself. Take advertising. Because hundreds of millions of people come to Amazon already in the mood to buy, wallets out, ready to click. Amazon can sell sellers the chance to appear at the top of those search results. That sounds small, it isn't. Amazon's advertising business pulled in about $56 billion last year, up from about $47 billion the year before. Roughly 18% growth in a single year, and faster than the store it sits inside. The ad business alone is now bigger than the entire revenue of many famous companies. And like the cloud, selling an ad slot costs Amazon almost nothing once the audience is already standing there. There's no inventory to buy, no truck to load. It's nearly pure margin layered on top of traffic the store already generates. Then there are the third-party sellers, and this is where the shape of the company really shows. Most of what sells on Amazon today doesn't come off Amazon's own shelves at all. Late last year, independent sellers accounted for about 61% of the paid units sold on the platform. Amazon increasingly doesn't want to buy and resell the world's goods. That's the low-margin Adam's business. Instead, it rents the storefront. It charges those sellers a fee to list, a fee to store the goods in its warehouses, a fee to ship them through its network, and then sells them advertising on top. Amazon has quietly shifted from being the merchant to being the landlord, collecting rent and tolls from the millions of merchants who set up shop inside its walls. The seller takes the inventory risk. Amazon takes the fees. That's a far better business than owning the inventory yourself. And stack those three hidden businesses together, and you start to see how lopsided the company really is. The cloud, the advertising, and the seller fees are all variations on a single idea. Build something enormous once, then charge everybody else to use it. The cloud charges other companies to use Amazon's computers. The ads charge sellers to use Amazon's attention. The marketplace charges merchants to use Amazon's warehouses and trucks. None of them require Amazon to buy a single extra television or pack a single extra box. They are tolls on infrastructure that already exists. That's why a sliver of revenue can throw off the majority of the profit. The expensive, heavy, visible part of Amazon is the part that earns the least. The light, invisible, almost weightless part is where the money piles up. So step back and the whole structure clicks into place. The store isn't really the product anymore. The store is the gravity well. It pulls in shoppers, sellers, data, attention, and sheer scale, and around that gravity, Amazon builds the high-margin businesses that actually generate the profit. The cheap, fast, low-margin retail keeps the whole system spinning and the customers loyal. But the money is harvested somewhere quieter, in the data centers AWS rents out, in the ad slots at the top of the search page, in the fees charged to a million sellers. Notice what Amazon does with its profits, too. It pours enormous sums, around $100 billion in a single year, into building still more data centers and computing power. It is reinvesting the cloud's winnings straight back into more cloud. The company is, in effect, feeding the part of itself that actually makes money. The store is the costume. The infrastructure is the business. So here's what Amazon really is. Not an everything store with a cloud business bolted on the side, but a high-margin technology and infrastructure company wearing a giant, low-margin store as a costume. The store earns the customers. The cloud earns the money. And once you can see that shape, you start spotting it everywhere in modern business. The visible, beloved product gets run thin and cheap to win scale and loyalty. And the real profit is quietly harvested from a second business that all that scale made possible. The free search engine that's really an advertising company. The cheap console that makes its money on the games. The bank account that's free because the lending is where the money is. The thing they hand you up front is the magnet. The profit sits somewhere behind it, in a business you rarely see and almost never think about. Next time we follow the phone in your pocket, the device everyone thinks is the whole business, sold by a company that increasingly makes its money after you've already bought it. That's Apple. And the money is not just in the iPhone.